We're mixing up the content today as I'm here looking at the Bookies early championship predictions for the 26-27 campaign. We're going to be looking at the 3 teams that they have predicted to go down from the championship, and we're also going to be looking at the 8 teams that they have put to finish inside the playoffs and automatically get promoted to the Premier League. So if you'd like to see more championship videos on the channel, I'm not going to waffle too much because it's going to be a long video. Please consider subscribing. We're on the road to 30,000 subscribers, and I think it's only right that we start with 24th place. 24th, they have got Lincoln City. Now, life as a championship side for Lincoln has not gone all too well so far. Obviously, they've lost manager Michael Skubala, who has taken up the role at Bristol City, which I think they'll be quite gutted with, considering how well he did last season. But if you're looking internally at the place at Lincoln City, they've appointed 2 head coaches who have been right in the heart of the success that they saw last season in League One. They know the place, they know the history of the club, they know the players, and I think most importantly, the players know them. So that relationship between those two could help the cause next season in terms of surviving in the championship. But I think the main question regarding the 2 head coaches is whether they're tactically competent in the championship opposed to what Skubala could have done for the Imps. But I think as one of the smaller sides in the championship next season in terms of budget and infrastructure, I can see why the Bookies have tipped them to go down. Of course, they've been on a similar trajectory as to what obviously my club Wrexham have been on in the National League for a couple of years and then just had a really sudden drastic rise. Obviously Wrexham's was quicker, but Lincoln City have got there gradually, and of course they have got a similar infrastructure and history, like I said, to Wrexham. So I do think it will be interesting. The main thing that Wrexham had going up the leagues was momentum, and Lincoln City 103 points last season. There is going to be some sort of momentum in that Lincoln camp, which I think can get them going next season. If you're looking at home as well, Sincil Bank, what a fortress that became. They picked up 58 points at home last season, and they'll be looking to do the same again in the championship. And I think home form for Lincoln could be a deciding factor as to whether they survive or whether they go down to League One. It's interesting to see how they do. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. 23rd place, they've got Charlton Athletic. Now, I think the interesting thing with Charlton is I do think they've got a chance of going down next season. They ended up surviving last year by 6 points, and I do think if they wouldn't have gone on that purple patch that they did have sort of in that late October, early November period where, you know, they beat Ipswich Town away 3-0, they went on like a 6 or 7 unbeaten run, and I think they might have found themselves in the relegation zone had that not have happened. I think over the course of the season we saw Nathan Jones' side become a bit weak at times, a bit fragile in certain areas of the pitch, and I do think if they want to stay up in the championship next year with the increased quality of the clubs that have come down from the Premier League and the strength of the teams that have come up from League One, they do need to go up a gear if they do want to secure their championship status. Now I think across the board as well for Charlton this season, especially in the summer transfer window, they need to get it right. Recruitment needs to be nailed on, and I think they need to do better if they want to survive comfortably this season. But I think it is all dependent on whether the funding is there for them to kick on in the transfer window. I think for Nathan Jones, adding to that front line this season is a must. You look at last year's statistics, 22nd for goals scored, and I think there's a lot of deadwood in that front line as well, that I'm not going to say Nathan Jones is holding on to them for experience or the fact that they've worked for him at other clubs. I do think he needs to be ruthless in terms of player recruitment this summer, and I think they could do a lot better in that forward line, and that will be a deciding factor. Like we said with Lincoln with their home form, it's going to be these small factors, and I think Charlton Athletic do need that player that's going to score the goals for them. Now I think based off what we've seen so far, it will be easy for them to get left behind in terms of what we have seen from other clubs in this division, the teams coming down and the teams coming up. So I do think it will be interesting to see how they act in the summer on the transfer front. And looking at the last relegation spot, they've got Preston North End, which is very interesting because they did finish 14th last season in the championship, and I think it does just sum up Preston North End in a nutshell. Mid-table side, false hope at the start of the season, and when Wrexham did travel to Preston in early December, it was sort of a game where 2 teams were fighting for that playoff spot. 2 teams were tipped to finish at the top end of the table come the end of the championship season. Now since then they ultimately just completely fell off a cliff since the turn of the new year and since the year of 2026. You're looking at statistics, looking at the games played, they won 6 games out of 22 since the turn of the new year. By their first half of the season standards, that is absolutely appalling, and I think there was a bit of a shock when, of course, we saw the front line in Lewis Dobbin, we saw Jebison, we saw Alfie Devine, you know, Harrison Armstrong, who was on loan for them at the first half of the season. absolutely scoring for fun, creating chances for fun, and just firing Preston up the table. Now, I do think there's one key factor in this transfer window for Preston North End, and it's securing Alfie Devine on a long-term deal. That is going to play a big role in terms of their expectations and in terms of players looking at Preston thinking, do I want to join? Is the ambition there? If they see a player like Alfie Devine sign on a permanent who has got a lot of clubs looking at him up in Scotland, here in the Championship, then if he does sign there, then I think that could be a good factor for them to kick on in terms of recruiting players and kicking on for what they would have hoped to have been a playoff finish last season going into the next campaign. You also are looking at the fact that Lewis Dobbin and Daniel Jebson are both returning to their parent clubs. It's a big miss, but it's really important that Paul Heckingbottom prioritises their replacements over anything this summer transfer window. I think it could be a struggle for Preston, obviously losing their main source of goals in that front three, but I think the experience of the manager Paul Heckingbottom should steady the ship all throughout the season. Could they go down? That's another question, but it's too early to tell for these teams yet. Looking in the playoffs now, 8th place, they have got Southampton, the Spires. Now, I think it is heavily reliant on whether Tonda Eckert remains as manager, and we've seen their social media posts, we've seen the 8-minute long interview, and it does look as if Tonda Eckert is going to remain in charge of Southampton going into the season. Now, if that is to be confirmed, I think Southampton could go one step further than they did last season and be up there for automatics. Whether they cheated their way throughout the season or not, I do think they cheated on more than 3 teams, and I do think it is a coincidence that the only teams they've highlighted that they've cheated on, they ended up losing and drawing those games. But I don't think you can knock the fact that they were incredible. And if they've cheated, then they do lose a bit of respect. But if they've only cheated on those 3 teams and have just done fantastically, then good on them, because they've got a fantastic team. They've got some fantastic players in that team that can play fantastic football. They beat Arsenal. They pushed Manchester City, some absolutely incredible teams, some of the best teams in the world. So I think momentum could be a thing going into next season for Southampton, whether this spying incident will have an impact on the players that they do keep, the players that possibly leave the club. I think if you are looking at player retention, the likes of Casper Yander, Leo Chienza, etc. will all be the first call of action for the Saints to retain going into the Championship next year. So it will be interesting to see the situation regarding them, the transfer window, what happens in terms of the manager, and possible sanctions in terms of the spying incident. 7th place, they have got Wrexham. Now, we narrowly missed out on a shot of playing Premier League football last year on the final day of the season by 2 points. We could have easily got that Josh Windass firing over in the last seconds of the game, but it's not to be. I think in terms of the camp at Wrexham internally, from the staff to the players, they'll all be wanting to go one step further next season. The transfer window for Wrexham is going to be vital. We've seen players like Idrissa Toure be linked, Anthony Patterson, Ethan Galbraith, so there is going to be an element of ambition for Wrexham in the transfer window, and don't be surprised if you see us spend another 15-20 million. We won that playoff spot, we won that automatic promotion spot, and most importantly, the people of Wrexham want Premier League football at the Racecourse Ground for the first time in our history. Now, I think it was really good for us last season because we went into the campaign knowing that we needed to recruit heavily in a lot of different areas across the pitch, and we came into it with nearly a completely new side, and over time they gelled and they became more consistent in terms of picking up results. And I think adding 3 or 4 new starters, 3 or 4 quality players that are going to come into the side and take us to the next level will just only further enhance our chances of securing promotion. I think as well, I've highlighted it previously with other teams, recruitment across the summer is going to be so important for Wrexham, because at the top end of the Championship we've seen the likes of Wolves, West Ham, Burnley come down, all teams that are just going to further enhance the quality. So recruitment, Wrexham need to nail on the head. 6th place, they have got Birmingham City. Now, I think this is a very bold claim after their 10th place finish, and what everyone expected was a Birmingham side that was going to go up to the Premier League, given the millions and tens of millions of pounds they did spend, the players, the calibre of players they did bring into the club. Now, in my opinion, Birmingham fans, if you're watching, don't get annoyed at me, don't think I'm an idiot just because I'm a Wrexham fan, but I don't think you will get anywhere under Chris Davis. I don't think you'll get promoted to the Premier League under Chris Davis. No matter how much money you chuck at him, I don't think he's the manager that will ever take you up to the top flight. That might come back to bite me on the arse, but we really don't know at this moment in time. It depends what happens in the summer transfer window. Now, I think the main thing for Birmingham is they just need to stabilise. They need to stabilise going into next year. Yes, they've had that sort of warm-up season back in the Championship. Don't get me wrong, for a newly promoted side, 10th place, I think they'll be happy-ish, but I think they'll have wanted that playoff spot and wanted to push for promotion, but I think they need to stabilise most importantly away from home. They had the 4th best home record at St Andrews last year. However, away from home, they were 21st in the table, only picking up 5 wins all season, which is the same as relegated Leicester City. So there is some calls for concern in terms of their away form. I don't know what has happened there, because at home they're so strong. They've beaten some of the top teams in this division, but away from home they just seem to completely struggle. In my opinion, looking at it from the outside, there's so much talent in that Birmingham squad, and I think with a more flexible, innovative manager, they could do so much better. They could do so much better. I think there is a manager out there that could take them up to the Premier League. But I think overall next season the aim should just be to cement a playoff spot. 5th place, they've got Sheffield United now. I think this is quite crazy now. It's the bookies at the end of the day. It's not someone's official predictions, but I think in terms of Blades next season, they'll have a much improved season now. Chris Wilder is leading them all through pre-season. He'll have a fresh transfer window to work with the players that he does want into the club. I do think they'll see a shift in recruitment in terms of, we saw last year they brought in quite a couple of loan players, quite a couple of young, inexperienced players in the Championship. But at this moment in time, I think if you are looking at Sheffield United, 5th place would be some transition from their 13th place finish last year in the Championship. They obviously had Ruben Sellers guiding them into the Championship last year, which was an absolute disaster class. But if you are looking at Chris Wilder, he is a manager that's going to positively change the environment and change the results in terms of picking up whether it's a point or 3 points on a consistent basis. He's going to get a squad together that is going to be one that he can trust and one that he can not really be built specifically off quality. He's not going to go out there and get the best players he possibly can. He's going to want a squad that's experienced, that's going to have that trust, that he can put the trust in them to go out there for 90 minutes, work their socks off and hopefully regain a playoff spot. So I think there's going to be improvements needed across the board, but I think there'll be ones that they'll see over the course of the campaign. 4th place, they have got Middlesbrough now. I think the thing with Middlesbrough last year is they had some incredible stints at different patches all throughout the season. Of course, Rob Edwards had them at the top end of the table for the majority of his time at the club, but Kim Helberg came in, and I do like him as a manager. I just think at times that there were gaps and there were signs of inexperience for him as a manager, but I think they'll be disappointed in the way that they did throw away automatic promotion last year, and only 2 wins out of their 10 final remaining games in the Championship. There's no excuses for that, but I'm sure again they'll be a team that has fire in their bellies, wanting to go that one step further next season. I think they'll obviously have to adapt to life without Championship Player of the Year Hayden Hackney in the middle of the park. They're going to get a pretty penny for him for whatever Premier League side does come in for him, so it's important that they reinvest that money well and invest in a midfield and an attacking force that's going to get them one step further up to the Premier League. 3rd place, they have got Burnley. Now, I don't think it's any surprise based off their history in the 2nd tier. Now, in the past 4 seasons in the Championship, they finished 2nd, 1st, 1st and 2nd. So they're experts in getting out of this division, but I think this season could be a bit interesting because they obviously don't have that permanent manager. Manager Michael Jackson is leading them into the campaign. They only have a caretaker manager, so it's up in the air who's going to be the permanent one, and it's going to be interesting because he needs to get nailed down and knuckled down in terms of who he wants to bring into the club, who's going to leave Burnley. So I don't think there's any guarantees so far that there is going to be a top 4 finish up in Lancashire, so we'll have to wait and see. I think it can only start and we can only make real judgments when they do get a permanent manager. 2nd place, they've got Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, from what I've seen and from what everyone's seen from Wolves in terms of recruitment and retention of players, they want to be in that 2027-2028 Premier League lineup. You're looking at midfielder Andre has put pen to paper to extend his stay up in the Midlands, which is a phenomenal boost for them, especially in the Championship. For such a young midfielder and such a promising midfielder who was playing well in the Premier League, to get him tied down in the Championship is just showing complete and utter ambition in wanting to get up to the Premier League at the first time of asking. If you are looking as well, former England international Kieran Trippier has agreed to join on a 2-year deal plus a further year, which is superb business. I think we can expect to see Wolves in the automatic promotion spots next season. And in 1st place, they have got the Hammers West Ham United. Now, I think the main thing for West Ham and the main thing that stands out for any Championship fan looking at their situation, keeping a manager of Nuno's pedigree in the 2nd tier and in the Premier League is a huge step towards bouncing back up to the Premier League. I think they'll be very busy in the summer in terms of keeping some key players and building on the squad that they are left with come, whether the likes of Jared Bowen, Tati Castellanos, whether these big players do leave the club, whatever happens, they're going to have the money, they're going to pump in to get them back up to the Premier League, and they won't be wanting to spend any longer than one season in the Championship. Financially, they can't afford to do that either. I think if you are a West Ham United fan, you can't expect anything less than going back up to the Prem. So that is it for today's video. If you would like to see more Championship content, let me know in the comment section down below, and until the next one, take care.